So the topic of AI is on almost every agenda of our committees here at the IUA in some form or another, whether that's on our underwriting or claims committees, or to those committees that are considering operational and regulatory matters. Many questions are raised by members, including what AI is, how it can be used, what are the risks, plus how it's being regulated, amongst many others. So this market briefing, our guest speakers from CGI and FTI will address some of these questions, highlighting areas of concern on the types of AI used and cover the risks, regulations, governance and legislation for different domains and jurisdictions. They will also very kindly share their insights and recommendations on how to navigate the complex and evolving AI regulatory environment. We're going to have some poll questions at the beginning and the end of the session, so please register your answers when the polls are presented. There will also be an opportunity to ask questions online via the question and answer facility on the button at the bottom of the Zoom screen. And the speakers will attempt to answer if there's time at the end. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to our panel of speakers. From CGI, we have Tim Scott-Simmons, and he has previous experience, Principal Enterprise Architect, Lloyd's. Competencies include creating target state architecture and operating models, digital services, business re-engineering, data strategy, privacy governance and compliance, data integration, operational analytics, and solution architecture. Cheryl Ållebrand has close to 2 decades of experience in tech and strategy and is dedicated to finding solutions that work for organisations, their members and those they support. She previously played an important role in launching 5G and IoT solutions for CGI and is now working to expand and extend application of those and other technologies in meaningful ways. From FTI, Peter Kelly is a senior insurance professional assisting management teams in strategy, development and decision-making in the areas of technology and data. Peter has helped several insurers assimilate new tools and processes to make effective decisions. And finally, but not least, we have Najia Mukhtar, and she has more than 15 years experience in risk, compliance and controls, consulting assignments of financial services companies. She started her career at PwC in London, where she spent 8 years working with clients to design and deliver external audit engagements, process risk and control assessments, regulatory-driven transformations, and post-merger integrations. Subsequently, after her career, she moved to KPMG in their financial services internal audit consulting practice. There is more information on our bios with the actual circular that went out for this webinar. But getting to the topic that we're here to discuss, I would now like to introduce our first poll before we turn to our questions. So, Tony, if we could have the first poll, please, and we can ask our attendees to register their answers. So we'll give a little time for people to answer these questions, please. So 74% of our audience are somewhat familiar with AI technologies. And I'll say that almost half, just under half, have personally used AI tools or applications in your work. And how do people view the impact of AI on organisations? So I would say half relatively positive, the other half neutral, and some very small percentage negative. So thank you very much. That's interesting. So we'll turn to the questions first of all. So number one, what is AI? And also, what are the typical use cases of AI in insurance? Peter, if I can turn to you first.
Thank you, Helen. Good afternoon, everyone. The insurance team here at FTI Consulting sees artificial intelligence in general as a powerful tool in the arsenal of insurance modelers who are out there trying to solve problems involving risk, uncertainty, outcome predictions, and classification. Predictive AI has been around for decades. I wrote my first AI insurance model in the 1990s. And predictive AI has been used in a wide variety of use cases, among them pricing, fraud, conversion prediction, for instance. But generative AI is newer, and it's a more advanced language-based method that's different from predictive AI. Some of the new and very powerful Gen AI models are being used in applications that involve huge amounts of data, especially for language use cases like underwriting, customer service, or claims. Let me give you an example. Some insurers are replacing their fixed rules-based web chatbots and instead using a flexible AI, Gen AI engine, even to the point of allowing the AI customer interaction to take place without any human oversight. And we can see into the future a little bit, new possibilities, things like new usage-based insurance that incorporates real-time collection of massive amounts of data in areas like telematics and other IoT applications.
Cheryl, if I can come to you, please. Same question.
Yes, wonderful. I think that Peter did a really good job of framing that. There is just so much confusion around the term AI. So I think it's important to note that that is really the umbrella term, right? That's for all of the capabilities that, some of which Peter described there. The traditional sort of AI that we've had for decades and that we've been working with is a bit more accurate, but it takes more work and not everyone can use it. So there's a bit of a difference between how you end up incorporating it into your use cases before getting on to the how it's being used in insurance. So in contrast to that, then the generative AI could be used for more things, and it's relatively fast and easy to implement. So sort of getting to the action more quickly. So if we look at it again from the traditional versus the new sort of generative stuff, one is the more specialized automation, and then the other is more of a collaborative generalist, right? So what we need to do now is consider how we incorporate it into the ways that we worked. And the important thing is that they can be combined. And in doing that, we can, connect some of the insight that Peter was talking about with the predictive analytics, more closely to action and like the interactions, right? I think that we've all interacted, or probably most people on the call have interacted with, let's say, ChatGPT, right? That is one example of generative AI. I guess if we want to look at the typical types of use cases, I think that that's one place that AI discussions tend to fall down, not just because we don't understand what they are, but also we're kind of told that it's the solution to everything and that you need it. And then people put their hands on it and say, but this doesn't do what I thought it did, or, I'm having trouble getting this out of it, or where do I even start? So I think that's where it does behoove us to talk about some of the specifics at the same time, sometimes without looking at what you need to do in your work, having that problem to solutionize off the back of it, we do end up talking in generality. So from a kind of general perspective, and I feel like I've been talking for a bit, so I will hand back in a second. But if we look at some of the core areas, core areas that are the near-term pressures in the insurance space and how we can solve it. One of my colleagues, Darren Rudd, just did a blog on this recently, and he identified alliteratively 5 core areas: costs, clients, competitiveness, capabilities, and compliance. So, from like the cost perspective, AI is known for helping with efficiencies, whether that's data ingestion or decisioning. From the client perspective, that's oftentimes around experience, right? So getting answers at speed and being more specific rather than answering in generalities. From the competitiveness, it can help you with growth, right? Like around helping to get more creative with your offerings, also with your outreach, targeting different audiences. From the capabilities perspective, like Peter was on to, it's a bit about intelligence. So, right, forecasting, de-risking things. And then finally, around compliance, you can do automated auditing, right? You've got a digital record. You can use all of the principles of explainable AI that I, hopefully we'll get into. We'll definitely, later make sure that we talk a little bit more about how you use AI responsibly. So really just all combined there, it's about being competitive, whether that's, competitive with other companies in your space, or providing competitive services, or even being a competitive employer at this point.
Thank you. Very interesting. Lots of use there. So what opportunities do you think AI offers for insurers, but also what risks do you think it poses? Tim, can I come to you on this one, please, first of all?
Yeah, sure. And good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to start by, I think, listing off what I see the 5 top opportunities that AI provides to insurers. And it kind of builds on some of what Cheryl just gave us there in the explanation around AI and the typical use cases we see. The first one actually is it's less about the technology of AI, and it's the change in the business opportunities itself. So your clients, right? In insurance, these type of events, we often are talking about the insurer, the broker, and we forget, well, there's the policyholder, the client, right? So their businesses, their challenges are changing because AI is a fully transformational technology that's impacting all parts of our society, all parts of the industries that we work in and that operate around the world. So the first area of opportunity that I would highlight actually is helping our clients navigate emerging risks as a result of AI, right? AI is popping up everywhere. I'm going to give a couple of examples. There's already court cases going on where HR firms have adopted AI-driven technologies, and then the AI hasn't behaved itself, right? And you start to get into automatic decisions making based on factors like age, which is a discrimination point, and that itself has created a challenge for those organizations who've used that technology, right? So helping our clients navigate risk and mitigate risk effectively is one of those huge opportunities. And the same can be said around the application of AI and cybersecurity. AI is empowering cybersecurity, both the good agents, but also the bad agents. So it's increasing just the amount of threats out there. So again, helping ensure that we're providing the right type of policies, the right sort of covers around cybersecurity, and the application for AI is a good example there. And the final area around navigating risks that our clients are having, I would say, is around climate exposure, right? So AI is also having an impact on helping with the transition to green technologies. As the insurance industry looks to respond to that challenge, that number one opportunity with AI is actually, let's take a step back. How does this impact our customers that we serve through the policies that we're creating? Are the policies that we've got today fit for the future? What do we need to make changes from that side? Okay, so that's the first key opportunity I see with AI. Second key opportunity, and Cheryl talked about this, is the engagement and reach. So how do you actually engage in a different digital experience? Peter mentions the IoT type products with insurance products linked to IoT. AI as part of that predictive analytics modeling capability can allow you to engage or reimagine the actual customer experience that you've got for some of those products. So there's some really great examples there coming through from our industry. Examples of AI-driven storm warnings, so it's actually predicting that a particular policy holder is going to be impacted from the landfall of a storm. So getting them and taking action before the event has occurred to allow them to give time to batten down the hatches, so to speak. And there's lots of other examples depending on what line of business you're looking at. But that engagement and reach and actually using AI technologies to beyond just chatbots, but to engage in a different way. The third main area is, and we talk a lot about this, is optimization and efficiency. There's a ton of use cases for underwriting efficiency, a ton of use cases for claims. I mean, CGI ourselves, we've built out an underwriter workbench that has AI baked into it because we see how it can be used to drive appetite selection and workflow routing and intelligent data extraction, right? That's about solving the problem that you're looking to achieve within the business process of underwriting or the business process of claims. If I look outside of industry, really great examples coming out in the legal tech space where lawyers are looking to digitize the way that contracts are created using AI with contract generation. I think there's some really great parallels to what we could do in the insurance space in that area from an opportunity perspective. So optimization efficiency is opportunity number 3. Opportunity 4, identifying and managing fraud, right? The UK has 40% of all crimes in the UK is fraud, related to fraud. 1 in 10 adults in the last year would have experienced fraud or attempted computer fraud in some sort of phase. And as an industry, we are impacted by fraud transactions. So that's another area where a lot of early adoption has taken place with the application of AI to help identify, manage, mitigate fraud within the way that we transact business. And the fifth opportunity is identifying and managing emerging risks. And Peter said at the start, AI's been around for a long time. Cheryl said it's a collection of technologies, it's a collection of different capabilities. What we've seen in the last 2 years is what I call a democratization of AI. It's so much easier now. We can do so much more with far less technical depth of knowledge and understanding, right? And that is starting to see some real benefits in the way that our actual science, our capabilities in that space, particularly with modeling out climate change as well. There's some massive capabilities that are coming through on that side. So there's the same underlying technology drivers that have democratized AI are also having a massive impact on the advanced analytics capability, the way that we actually understand the risks that we're taking in to the insurance organizations as the cover that we're providing. So those are the 5 top opportunities as I see them. I've listed out the 5 top risks as well. And again, some of these are fairly obvious, but I think it's worth covering. So the first risk, in my opinion, is loss of privacy, right? So AI, it's so easy for the information that is available. AI makes the ability to surface, encounter information, to reuse information. There are some real privacy implications around AI and whether you should be using data within training models of AI. That's a massive topic in itself, and I think we'll get onto that later on. Next one is that loss of confidentiality and commercially sensitive data, right? As people are racing to adopt AI technologies, they're not necessarily doing it in the right way, and they're leaving commercially sensitive information available to other people to pick up. And so managing that risk and ensuring that you're locking down and protecting your information is a key risk an organization has. Third one is, this is a new technology. There's going to be hidden costs, right? And that's a real factor with AI. It is a technology. The one thing we know for certain it's going to change. Even just recently with the announcement of Minstrel, it's an open source equivalent AI to ChatGPT. For anybody who's not heard of Minstrel before, they operate at 1/100th of the cost of OpenAI. Yeah. So what would cost you $100 or £100 in OpenAI will cost you £1 in Minstrel to actually execute the same type of transaction. So as you're looking to choose the right type of technologies, the cost factors appropriated with actually then taking in and managing the technology on an ongoing basis. 2 other risks, that customer experience. Do people want to be talking to a chatbot? Do we have the right AI policies in place? Actually, there are times in a journey, in a claims journey, where you just want to talk to somebody, right? So that reduced customer experience or an impact on your brand, I think, is a key risk if AI is not used in the right way. And then the final risk is that reinforced bias that might have existed in the training data, the AI not behaving itself, or in the case I gave earlier around the employment law. So unfair practices actually being baked in because of the way that the AI was implemented. It wasn't trained appropriately. It wasn't implemented in a responsible way. And we'll talk a little bit about that later on in terms of how you can ensure that there is the right responsible use frameworks around AI. So I'm gonna pause there because I realize I've been talking for a good couple of minutes, but hopefully that's a comprehensive answer to what is quite a wide question.
No, thank you, Tim. Very interesting. Peter, if I can come to you, if you've got anything to add to Tim's comments.
I think Tim's given a great summary and overview. I might just add a few perspectives from our client work. I think in addition to what Tim has said, there is a tendency in the part of early adopters in the insurance community to overuse AI. We've coined a phrase internally here, the AI fatigue syndrome. We've tried to use every way of using AI at every part of the business. And our sense is that AI is not a substitution or substitutionary transformation. It's an incremental transformation. Well, for instance, we have clients who have decided, let's use AI as our underwriting core competence, our underwriting core technology, or our pricing core technology. And they've done their best to make a 100% AI-based pricing engine. And we've helped some of them to actually come back to a more rational place where AI has a place in the value chain of that process, and instead is the ideal data preprocessor. But it's not necessarily the right technology for the entirety of that use case. And it may be because the AI models have such significant complexity that the insurer just can't live without clear interpretability for either them or for their regulator. Or it could be because the AI models have such computational requirements that the investment that's necessary to be performing on a real-time basis for a quote, perhaps an electronic price comparison environment, is too expensive. And the non-AI approaches to approximate what the AI model is telling the insurer are much less expensive and are also interpretable. So, we see some of the same things Tim talked about: cost, complexity. A second risk I think I'd add is durability. We do see early AI applications having short lives, and AI models needing to be rebuilt with a higher degree of frequency and refresh rate than non-AI models. And we're investigating that phenomena because we think it has something to do with the granular structure of the AI model itself. There seems to be a better solution that might be out there. It seems very powerful in the lab, but it only lasts for 3 or 4 months, as opposed to the old way of doing this particular application, which would last for 6 or 12 months. An example might be a writer of, say, professional indemnity insurance is deciding to use a Gen AI model to determine the extent to which a prospective customer is involved in an unusually large amount of legal proceedings. And in their historical data, that model performed really well. And then as they start to use it for prospective new customers for whom it's essentially a new mix of business, the AI engine starts to degrade in terms of performance quite quickly. It's giving an inconclusive or ambiguous outcome more often than was expected. So AI, I completely agree with what Tim and Cheryl said, is transformational, but it's not low maintenance. It's easy to use, but it's not easy to build and maintain. And for that reason, I think a lot of what we're seeing, we'll look back a year or two from now and say, that was the embryonic period of insurers using AI technologies. It wasn't the end state. We finally arrived, as Cheryl talked about. I believe we're just beginning on this journey.
Thank you, Peter. Yes, that's very interesting. So turning to how to use AI, how can we as an industry ensure that AI is used in a responsible, ethical, and transparent way? Najia, can I come to you first on this, please?
Sure, thank you, Helen, and good afternoon to everyone. So we've talked about AI systems being complex and very powerful. And with this complexity and power come a range of ethical and professional dilemmas which need to be addressed. I think, Tim has brought out 5 and Peter has kind of reinforced those. I'll focus on 2 just in the interest of of time here. We all know that AI systems can amplify human bias, and they can do this often dramatically. This is clearly an ethical as well as a legal and regulatory problem because it leads to outcomes where a particular group, potentially a protected group, is unfairly or fallaciously disadvantaged. Biased outcomes can arise due to misrepresentations or underrepresentations in the data that is used to design and train AI models, or they can be just built into the assumptions that are coded into the algorithms. There are many examples of AI-generated bias for retail consumer-facing applications, for example, in underwriting and pricing, claims, and in recruitment, as Tim mentioned. But perhaps more relevant for this audience, bias is also an important issue for commercial and small business customers. For instance, insurers are using AI and web-scraped data to classify which industry a potential buyer of insurance, a company, a business is in, and then setting rates based on these classifications. Now, if there are errors and misrepresentations in this data, you can, it would be an interest and a very important area of interest for regulators because industry classifications, first of all, should be standardized. And also this would influence the availability and pricing of coverage to businesses, and it will affect insurance buying decisions by these businesses. That's one example where bias could affect businesses and commercial customers. I think the way to address this it seems simple. It requires a lot of work, but what you require is high quality, proactive testing for bias, and the testing needs to be ongoing because we don't want bias to creep into these systems as we continue to use them. And so there needs to be the use of robust and reliable testing methodologies. And that can be done often through third parties who, such as we at FTI, do have a methodology for this, but also through internal audit teams or red teams internal to companies that are testing these models on an ongoing basis. The other important challenge, again, that Tim touched upon is transparency and explainability. What we don't want is these systems to be black boxes. The regulator certainly doesn't want this. And so stakeholders, we need to be able to explain to stakeholders, including regulators, how the system uses data, what sources of external data are used, the workings of the model, and in what context the outcomes of the model will be used. In effect, the model has to be capable of scrutiny. And we will see that this is one of the key requirements of the EU's AI Act for high-risk AI systems. From our perspective, the way to implement AI responsibly is not new to companies. What you need is to establish and empower an effective governance mechanism. This includes oversight committees, policies, testing frameworks, and regular reporting on the risks that are emerging. And they need to be able to risk assess, manage, and oversee the implementation of AI systems, their use of data, the outcomes they generate, and to horizon scan to ensure that the latest regulations are being captured. I see sort of 4 components. You need to develop an AI strategy. You need to establish an AI governance and risk management framework, including protecting against cybersecurity threats and loss of unauthorized loss of data. And AI talent management, very important. We need people who actually understand these things to be able to run and oversee and monitor these systems. And then finally, compliance with emerging laws, standards, and industry norms.
Thank you, Najia. Cheryl, can I come to you and ask if you can add to Najia's excellent explanation there?
Yes, I agree with everything she said. You know, you really do need to start with, as an organization, not just the people who are considering perhaps using these technologies, but even at the organizational level, you have to start with an ethical framework and clear governance. And both of those things are dependent upon each other, and then any future success that builds under that. So we have sort of three different guardrails, if we want to think of it that way, that that all of the considerations around it then fall under. So starting, you know, with what Najia was saying around the having the right data basically, and data rights, including whether or not that data is relevant to the decision you're trying to make. So that's part of the ethical side, where you need to make sure that everything is fair and inclusive. Then on the other side, you also have to make sure that it's trustworthy, and that's where this explainable AI, being able to show where your decisions are coming from, and then underpinned by the robustness, which Najia was also onto talking about, having rigorous testing. Same thing when it comes to the design and the development, and those all need to then be backed up with assurances that you are compliant to both laws and regulations. And as we know, as this continues to develop, take speed with the new capabilities of the new forms of technology, those things, the regulations are emerging, right? So it's not a, we know what the playground is, we know what we're working under. We do need to continue to pay attention to those, and not least of which what Peter was talking about with the sort of model drift, or some, or I think he might have called it I can't read my notes, but degradation, basically, model degradation. You need to, thanks for the nod. I like to say that the AI isn't just for Christmas, it's for life, right? It is an investment, and it's a continuous investment. And you need to consider a lot of things up front, both in order to not stumble on not fall down at the start. There's a number of different stumbling blocks around, do you need to use it? Is it useful? But then how do you have the right data in order to use it? And do you have, like I said, the rights to the data? But is the whole organization on board? I know that we do, as with previous technologies, it's smart to start sort of small and make sure that you're really nailing it and taking the lessons from that before you move on to the other phases. But with this, it's even more important to then, to continue on that. The one other thing, I lost my train of thought there, but the one other thing that I do want to say that underpins it is the idea of culture and training. So that does need to be across the organization. Came back to that, across the organization. So sometimes if we do just start in this really narrow playing space where we say, well, this is my area of responsibility, I can't be bothered to get the whole organization on board, because then nothing will ever happen, right? We sometimes have to balance that idea of being able to take action, or the inertia that comes from having too many cooks involved. At the same time, if you don't take in all of the different perspectives from, whether or not, even down to your DEI people at work who can help with understanding some of the inclusivity biases that might be missing from the data, over to your legal and, contractual type contacts within your own company. you could be missing out on some of those different aspects, right? So we always start with risk, almost like checklist, right? So you're trying to understand what the level of risk is of this, how is it going to be used? Remember, we talked about everything from, like actually making big decisions to just trying to determine who you might want to target if you're going toward growth, or, answering a question. You need to understand how important is getting the answer to this question right versus, what is this just a really general question? So there's different levels of risk involved in all of those things, and you need to right size that. And that is the way that the UK has sort of chosen to go about it from a regulatory perspective, right? Rather than with other countries where where oversight and regulation have been more centralized, the UK has chosen to make it more sector-based rather than centralized, so that it gives you a little bit more of that flexibility and specificity. Sorry for losing my train of thought there a little bit, but I think I got it all out.
Yeah, happens to me all the time. And